What can I do to make the world a better place? Land, industry, cars, real estate. There's hardly anything else. Wealth in and of itself does not bring happiness. Wealth does not mean good health. And often great wealth comes hand in hand with great trouble. Money is not the purpose of life, just as business is not the foundation of life. If a person is unwilling to invest a certain sum in acquiring spiritual knowledge, they will never be able to preserve that knowledge. Spirituality is a state in which a person no longer lives solely for themselves, but for the well-being of others. Do good and forget about it. Spirituality and success. Living a spiritual life is in itself a proof of your success. Throughout my life, and it's been a very long life, I have encountered many successful, strikingly successful people. You cannot even imagine the heights they've scaled, yet they completely lack even the slightest trace of spirituality. Within the social landscape, they are far from anything resembling spirituality. In truth, everyone is inherently spiritual. Once that inner light is kindled, it stirs the consciousness and prompts a complete reevaluation of one's values. But until, as the saying goes, a horse is stolen from an unlocked barn, that spirituality remains deeply buried. It resides within but lies dormant. In the meantime, a person may be wholly absorbed in the pursuit of wealth, amassing vast sums of money, acquiring properties, cars, and then even more money, more real estate, more cars. What's involved in the process of acquiring such wealth? Tremendous effort is required, not only to earn it, but also to invest it. Land, industry, cars, real estate. There's hardly anything else. And perhaps clothing, too. In a way, even that begins to resemble real estate. What is the true meaning of financial life? Why is it that those who earn vast sums of money so often fail to realize, until much later, if at all, though we are now witnessing the early stirrings of this awareness, that money is, at its core, a form of energy? And like all energy, it must be used wisely. Most people are preoccupied with accumulation of wealth. Why? Because although their spiritual nature is present within them, their consciousness remains inclined towards the material world, governed by the principle of mine and for me. Most people engaged in the pursuit of wealth, those working to relieve the karmic burdens of others and earn money, which is also very important, are caught in a cycle of accumulation and acquisition. Spirituality is the acquisition of spiritual energy, the accumulation of merit, a state in which a person no longer lives solely for themselves, but for the well-being of others. I am attempting to reconcile these two polarities within the consciousness of many. Spirituality begins to take form when a person, in the course of their daily life, makes a sincere effort to care for those they encounter. This might seem odd when, for example, someone is traveling on public transport and finds themselves thinking, there are so many people in this carriage, I don't even know them. How could I possibly care for them? And yet, they can care for these people, if they know how to do it. In terms of spiritual culture, such an individual remains calm. They do not disperse their energy in anger, vanity, or greed. Instead, they focus their thoughts on the positive. They are attuned to positivity, and those around them perceive that positive, uplifting energy. I'm speaking about practical things that do work, because we are what we think. If a person is tense, the wave of that tension reaches everyone nearby. Those less resilient may absorb it. So spirituality is, at its heart, the care we extend to others. For example, a spiritual practitioner may pray or recite mantras, focus on the inner light, or hold positive thoughts, sending waves of uplifting vibrations to those sharing the space with them, whether in a crowded underground carriage, on a bus, walking down the street, or within their own family. At any given moment, spirituality can be expressed through simple inner acts. When a person feels tension, they let it go. When anger arises, they soften it. When they feel irritation, they redirect their mind, drawing upon inner spiritual strength to transform negativity into something light, perhaps a joke, and ultimately, love that should always be the first response. But even if they do not yet feel that love, they can at least ease the tension and soften its impact. This is genuine work and true help. But how does this relate to business? When a person's mind is tense, their business will reflect that tension. A business owner or leader who is angry, greedy, or otherwise unsettled creates a powerful strain within their team. As a result, the team cannot function effectively because those people want to escape from such an environment. They stay only because of the salary they receive. Our body temple is not merely a tool. It is a conduit to a wealth of information. It helps us navigate through the vastness of the universe, and we make use of it. People often carelessly call it a spacesuit, an avatar, a shell, failing to recognize the direct connection between the spiritual, mental, and astral power and the physical realm. Those who neglect this body fail to unlock the gifts hidden within it. I am moving from the periphery to the heart of the matter to emphasize just how essential it is to understand what we truly are. For a business person, it's vital to grasp these fundamental truths that I am sharing now. Because any attempt to take control of their business, while still remaining truly human, will ultimately prove fragile unless they grasp an important truth: that every event in their life, including the business they are engaged in, is a gift from on high. It is an opportunity granted by the universe to channel the energy of life wisely, including that form of life energy we call money. When people squander that energy, spending it on nightclubs and all that comes with them, they certainly have the right to do so. But in doing so, they forfeit the karmic bonuses earned in past lives. They lose the benefits granted to them by the universe. Resources they were entrusted to use for help and peacemaking, for creativity and uplifting those around them. But when that trust is broken, difficulties inevitably follow, and they begin to seek guidance from people like me, asking, "What should I do?" Wealth in and of itself does not bring happiness. Wealth does not mean good health. And often, great wealth comes hand in hand with great trouble. Certain events happen in life that absorb the money we've earned. And if we understand money as energy, we must also remember that energy is information. The information embedded in that energy, manifested in the form of money, unfolds into the fabric of our life. In other words, the sequence of events in our life is directly shaped by what we do, how we earn our money, the methods we employ, and the kind of energy we invest in the process. Every element involved contributes to the outcomes that follow. This is karma. If a person has realized this, and that very awareness can dissolve at least half of their negative karma, they begin to seek ways to redirect their energy. They come to people like us and ask directly, "I have money. What can I do to make the world a better place?" At the very least, the small world that surrounds them. We're not speaking here of global projects. but about challenges within their family, or struggles within their own consciousness, or difficulties that might involve their friends or their immediate environment, and ultimately, their business. Then comes the question, what must be done to integrate spirituality into one's business life? What must be done to ensure that business is heading in the right and righteous direction? I believe most people understand the meaning of the word righteous, and if they don't, they should look it up. The Vedas are a profound source of wisdom about righteousness, containing deep knowledge. In ancient Russia, words sharing the same root were commonly used in everyday speech. We are called to understand how to use energy and the life force correctly. Consider this. A human being spends virtually half their life, or even the entirety of it, earning money just to feed their body and sustain corporeal programs. It borders on the absurd. When someone devotes their whole life to business, spending the majority of their life earning money, they cease to truly live. They lose sight of the very purpose of their existence, because they have a goal. And money is a special form of information. It is energy, yet a deceptive kind, for it can create a powerful illusion. If I have money, I can have or do everything. But in truth, they can do very little. Eventually, they come to someone like me and say, I have money, but it doesn't bring me health or happiness. I am not the person I really want to be. The question is how to reconcile two inseparable aspects. For money is simply energy taking the form of finance. The universe provides this energy. Yet many believe business and spiritual practice are separate realms. They think if I begin practicing spirituality, I must forget about my business. This is a problem of the mind, a mind that lacks an understanding of what spirituality truly is, what life itself is, and how within this life there exists the possibility to earn a living. And it wasn't us who designed this arrangement. This relentless pursuit for money was imposed upon us. Why? This raises many questions about why things have come to be this way. All of it was shaped by forces restraining human evolution. Thus, money is not the purpose of life, just as business is not the foundation of life. Business is merely a form of activity, an expression of one's personality, ego, and mind. Their ego desires in abundance more and more, and they immerse themselves in business, believing this is the way to fulfill their desires. I also know people who wish to dedicate themselves to creativity, which often requires substantial funds. And for them, opportunities arise through various channels, offers or events, coming together to grant them that possibility. Take, for example, someone practicing spirituality. They simply channel their mental energy into the universe, setting in motion a chain of events that enables them to emerge, be accepted, and receive recognition from the world. Such cases are well known. In show business, it's often called hitting the target. Yes, they hit the mark. This person did not seek fame or engage in business. They had no money. They simply wrote a single song and it spread far and wide, making them famous with millions of fans. Why does this happen? This is, of course, the law of karma, the true cause and effect relationship. It reflects proper astrology. In other words, their destiny is inscribed in their Vedic chart. They were born with this potential. And they did not squander this energy on trivial substitutes, like craving a cake but settling for a mere candy. Spending energy on trivial pleasures, like candies, does not allow one to truly savor the sweetness of life. Their energy is wasted. They lack patience. Yet there are those who direct their energy wisely, patiently wait, work diligently on themselves, and invest thoughtfully, and for them everything falls into place. So business must be righteous. For it to truly flourish in our time, there were times when it wasn't necessary to do anything extraordinary. One could succeed simply by earning money without much thought. Money was amassed because the individual had a purpose. The universe responds, if you desire wealth, so be it. But they do not know how their life will unfold, nor where they might ultimately have to channel that money. We know and have often seen cases where a person dedicated themselves to earning money, accumulated wealth, only for something unforeseen to occur. I once witnessed a story. I used to go to Lenin Komsomol Park at 5 in the morning to do spiritual practices and pranayamas, working with body alchemy while it was still dark. Around 8 in the morning, after 2 or 3 sessions outdoors in both winter and summer, on my way back, I would pass by a magnificent house that was under construction. This house resembled a palace, and it had been built over a year and a half. Whether I walked by daily or every other day, I took an interest in observing how life unfolded and how the construction progressed. There were marble slabs, fences, and many intricate details. Eventually, the house was completed, and I even saw people move in. It was fascinating, and I felt a sort of joy for those involved. But less than a week after they settled in, I returned from my practice to find a large gathering of mourners. I approached and asked what had happened. They responded, the owner has died. The owner died. You get the picture? The house was probably worth millions of dollars. This serves as a very vivid illustration of the deeper question, why do we live at all? To worry that the money or treasures we spend our lives accumulating, many of which we barely even get to hold in our hands, will inevitably be left behind for someone else. It's all Maya, an illusion. And yet there are people in the world today who are beginning to understand this. Well-known figures, like Soros and others, I won't mention all the names, have come to recognize this. They've started directing their wealth into the development of new initiatives, innovation, and similar efforts. They understand that this money must be used wisely, now. It's energy. Ultimately, we are accountable for how we use it. Moreover, I know of certain esoterically inclined members of the scientific community, progressive scientists, not only in Russia, whose names I will not mention now. They claim that when a person accumulates a certain amount of money, a new element begins to develop in their bloodstream. On an informational level, that much is certain, which resembles something related to drug addiction. A person with a great deal of money eventually becomes unable to live without it. Once a certain threshold is crossed, they lose control over their consciousness. Because money carries with it an energy of information and seemingly unlimited possibilities. Seemingly because in truth, it is not so. According to the universal law, this is not so. The person cannot step outside it to take control over it. We have seen this. When the financial crash came, many businessmen committed suicide. In particular, in Germany, there was a very well-known individual who lost an enormous fortune, something in the range of tens of billions of euros. I may not recall the exact figure, but it was about a third of his entire wealth. Just a third. And yet he ended his life. What happens with such people? What immense force of attachment takes hold of them? He lost just a third. He still had a colossal amount of money left, but he simply could not bear the loss and chose to die. And this is not an isolated case. That is why, for people who possess great wealth, it is absolutely vital to preserve their own lives and to direct that energy towards what we might call the righteous flourishing of business. What is righteousness in business terms? It begins with the principles, do not steal, do not cause harm, and it aligns with a spiritual tenet. Create conditions in which the people around you can grow and develop. Create conditions in which those around you can find happiness. And then enjoy the fruits of your labor. This is the essence of karma yoga. When a person lives by these principles, they may not even need to perform specific or intense spiritual practices. They selflessly dedicate themselves in service of others. Such a person may be a businessman, someone who earns well, who has everything they need and can afford anything they wish, but they don't act from the possessive impulse of mind for me, but from the necessity to support the business. For this, they may need to purchase proper equipment, to employ capable people, to hire an IT firm, and so on, to contribute to the greater good, to make the world more prosperous, to invest in new developments, in laboratories, to help create better medicines, to support the well-being and prosperity of the society and the state. That is what they ought to be doing. Is this present in life? Yes, it exists, but it's a rare case. Unfortunately, such people are scarce in today's world. People who are deeply immersed in business projects often claim they have no time to practice Kriya. Though in truth, this isn't so. They still find time to watch television, to relax, and so on. They could use their life purposefully, with benefit. Even if 1 hour a day were devoted to practice, to inner work, it would already be something. But if they genuinely believe they don't have this time, they can still compensate for the lack or total absence of spiritual practice through service to the world. This is something spoken about not only by spiritual leaders, but by many other people. Service in the world. In yoga, this is called karma yoga, when a person, while retaining a considerable portion of their earnings for themselves, though it's unclear when they might ever have time to spend it all, consciously directs a similarly significant portion toward a project that brings genuine benefit to others. Do good and forget about it. This is the approach to be practiced by those in business. The issue is, when such a person comes to me, I often sense a lack of confidence in them. It stems from one simple fact. They don't truly know what they want. They haven't made up their mind yet. Their mind, like the two hemispheres of the brain, is caught between two polarities. They don't know where they truly want to be, nor how to reconcile in their own consciousness what seems like a contradiction. How to integrate or comprehend the connection between the spiritual and the material, and how to develop the correct attitude towards it. What is matter? What is it made of? Matter is life that surrounds us, our bodies, our hands, and so on. It is the tangible, touchable reality. It is in essence a matrix. What is a tangible matter? Something made up of atoms. Atoms are parts of solids that can be perceived by our senses. Here is a chair. I say it's made of wood. I know it's made of wood. I know it's a solid material manifestation. This is an object. The key point is that every physical object possesses a certain density, and this density is determined by the speed at which electrons revolve around the atomic nucleus. An atom is a rotational force. An atom is not a particle, but spinning energy compressed into what we perceive as an atom. Should this rotation dissipate, the atom would break down. It would simply vanish, dissolving back into space. In fact, such transformations are occurring constantly. But why do we perceive density in objects? Because of the speed of the rotation and its nature determine the density. It is this spinning energy, manifesting as atoms, that allows us to perceive the material world. It's like trying to place two like poles of a magnet together. We feel how they repel each other. There is no visible substance between them, yet there exists an invisible field, a kind of barrier or shield, that prevents us from connecting them. If the magnetic field is strong enough, as with neodymium magnets, it becomes virtually impossible to bring the poles together, whereas ordinary magnets might be forced into contact and still resist alignment. Neodymium magnets generate such intense repulsion that they cannot be joined at all. It might have an adhesive force of 200 or 300 kilograms. If you flip it to the opposite pole, it will latch on, and you won't be able to pull it apart. This is latched on. It's futile to try and tear it away. That's the nature of this force. We are used to perceiving reality through our senses, tending to believe that materiality is only what we can touch, what relates to our social lives and other external aspects, whereas the spiritual we imagine is untouchable, something abstract that doesn't bring wealth or other tangible gain. Yet I've just offered an analogy to show how energy and matter are linked. In much the same way, energy is bound to our potential. When we realize we need strength, we must also know where to draw it from. When we realize that along the spiritual path, we must also sustain ourselves financially, it becomes essential to understand where this opportunity arises from. It reveals itself when we cultivate the right attitude towards life. It stems from the realization, I see how my material life can be adjusted. I seek greater possibilities. And they emerge when I gain clarity about what I truly desire. They arise from my understanding that whatever I direct the power of my concentration towards, an idea, will begin to crystallize in space through unfolding possibilities. The sequence of events begins to shift. As I mentioned earlier, there are people who have attained remarkable financial success through seemingly inexplicable means. It just happened. Space resonated. Space itself responded in resonance and presented the opportunity. Our spiritual state invites various opportunities into our life. The opportunities that come are the reflection of our correct inner attitude and the focus of our concentration. The universe grants you whatever you ask for. If you desire great wealth, it will provide it. And let me remind you, you are accountable for how you use it. It's energy. Are you truly prepared to wield such immense power, to manage such a large sum? When I ask those who seek money, how much do you need for your life? And they state an amount. I often notice they seem reluctant or embarrassed to pronounce a higher figure. For me, it's obvious. Why so? Not because they believe the amount is excessive, but because they're afraid of seeming unspiritual. This is another problem. There are people who engage in spiritual practice and dream of owning a Rolls-Royce, yet they believe that to accept money is unspiritual. I rarely read comments on the internet, but I've heard that many users have been saying for years that it's unspiritual for yoga teachers to accept money in exchange for spiritual knowledge. But such opinions come from ignorance. These people are unprepared for this knowledge. If I have money, I gladly spend it on spiritual learning, because I understand its value, and it makes no difference to me what it costs. When I was younger, I earned so little that it took me years to save enough just to make a journey to India. It truly took decades before I was able, in this very body, to travel to India for the first time, just to come closer to the essence of spiritual knowledge. Every bit of money I had, everything our family managed to save, was set aside for this purpose. We earned little but worked hard. That was the nature of that epoch. Now everything has shifted. If a person is unwilling to invest a certain sum in acquiring spiritual knowledge, they will never be able to preserve that knowledge. They are simply not ready to move forward on the path because they are greedy, as simple as that. Yet this greed is often cloaked in lofty phrases. I am spiritual, I'm not ready, it's not right, or spirituality can't be bought. The entire world asks for money in exchange for what it calls spirituality. Books. You walk into a shop, you buy one. You need to pay a certain amount to purchase it. It might cost 3, 5, even 10,000. The Bhagavad Gita with Yogananda's commentaries was sold for 30 to 50,000 when it was available only in very limited editions. And people who truly needed it bought it. They knew it was a lifetime's treasure. They didn't look at it as something worth 50,000. Those who claim that spirituality cannot be sold should then refuse to buy spiritual books. Such books should not be sold. They should be printed and handed out freely to everyone. But why doesn't this happen in reality? Why is it that traditional education so often comes at a high cost? Is it more important than spiritual learning? Why do people expect spiritual knowledge to be free, while they readily pay for traditional education? People don't question paying vast sums for their children to attend educational institutions that, by nature, ought to offer free knowledge. In today's world, everything comes at a price. Just look at the pharmaceutical industry for a moment. Why should someone in need of help have to pay for medication? That's how the system is set up. And if that's the system we live in, then why shouldn't someone who teaches yoga be entitled to receive payment for their work? When I was asked this very question, I responded, if you wish to integrate spiritual practice into your social life, you must learn how to earn a living. I tell everyone, you cannot truly walk a spiritual path if you're not standing firmly on your feet. It's like a husky fellow saying, I have no money because I want to meditate. I practice meditation, so I have no money. I ask them, what do you live on? Do you have a family? Yes, I had a family, but I had to separate from my wife. And I reply, why? Because she didn't want to meditate. To which I say, of course not. What she wanted was a well-stocked fridge. She wanted you to earn money. You have a child after all. Why do you, who practices meditation, continue to live selfishly, failing to consider the responsibility you bear towards your loved ones and family? It's the foundation. This is how yoga and spirituality should be integrated into your life. If you practice meditation but abandon your family to the mercy of fate, going hat in hand, can that truly be called spiritual practice? Is it spiritual to abandon everyone for the sole purpose of living just the way you desire? If you are alone, that is your choice. But when you have responsibilities, you must acknowledge them. A person who sacrifices sleep to dedicate themselves to spiritual practice while supporting their family during the day, that is a truly spiritual person. They put in real effort and receive the rewards accordingly. Yes, difficulties arise. We have faced such hardships in times of war. Now the opportunities are greater. When people say, I can't earn, and I see someone over 30 who truly can't, it strikes me as odd. Spiritual practice helps one gather more energy and deeper understanding. Through this understanding, they build strength, find new opportunities, and attain realization. Those who have managed to get to their feet while committing to spiritual practice stand taller and grow ever stronger. They are genuinely successful. Spiritual practice itself amplifies this success. There is a law. Whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him. For whoever has, to him will be given. To attract abundance, you must integrate understanding into everyday life. Understanding of your life's purpose, not by chasing illusions or building castles in the air, but by standing firmly on your own feet. Take Georgy Ivanovich Gurdjieff as an example. Back in the Tsarist era, when a single ruble had immense value, enough to buy a house. I may be exaggerating. Yet one could buy a small estate for what now seems quite a small amount of money. He taught esoteric arts to his students, making them work really, really hard. The fees were exorbitant, beyond what even wealthy people could easily afford. He used to tell them, if you are not prepared to pay for what I offer, you are not ready to become the person you aspire to be. Because for you, money matters more than your spiritual essence. Of course, if someone genuinely lacks funds but truly desires growth, then they need to find a way to earn what is required. Yet there are those who yearn for wealth while clinging tightly to their meager coin and insisting, put more into my hand. You tell them, open your palm, release what you have, and they will put more. But they resist, no, it's mine. The truth is, you can only place something into an open hand. And there, in that closed fist, lies their penny. Their unwillingness to let it go exposes greed and a lack of understanding. Therefore, spiritual practice is not what is sold. And I say this with particular emphasis to support those masters who charge fees for what they do. I'm not even speaking about myself, but on behalf of those true masters who are compelled to receive compensation for what they share. We have instructors, we have yoga centers. Many of them receive salaries. Why do we see that as inappropriate? These people devote themselves fully, and the fee they receive reflects the life force, energy, time, and physical effort they invest. But this is not a sale of spiritual knowledge. Spiritual knowledge can be found in books. And those who feel indignant can go and purchase books and study them on their own. And when it doesn't work, they'll find themselves seeking someone like us. Because firstly, it's not possible. And secondly, no book can ever encapsulate what a spiritual guide may impart through personal transmission. Integrating yoga into modern life begins with understanding and accepting the realities of that life. A person must first stand firmly on their own 2 feet. And until they do, their spiritual practice will never unfold in the way they imagine. Once, a man came to see me. As we spoke, it quickly became clear what he did with his life and what he failed to do. He asked, "May I attend your retreat?" I responded with a question, "Do you have a family?" He replied, "Yes." "Then the money you've set aside for this retreat, could it be used to support your family? Does your family need this money?" He said, "Well, yes, it does." Then I said, "Go and spend it on your family. And when you have the means, we'll heartily welcome you." He protested, "But why? I want to practice." You cannot pursue spiritual practice at the expense of your family. I did not permit him to join. I simply couldn't. Because I saw he had taken that money from his family's needs. You see, it's a wrong attitude. It stems from a lack of fundamental knowledge. And what truly motivated him was egoism. He wanted to possess the knowledge, to elevate himself. He was willing to spend the family money, but not to commit to the path. As is often the case, such people never actually practice. Money was not invented by man. It is rather a byproduct of losing our life force energy. Because no sum of money can equal the worth of time a person spends, the time of their life, their very existence, in pursuit of these means of survival. And yet these means grant little in return. You come home from work, perhaps having received your 13th salary payment, the one everyone used to await eagerly. It's a bit more than usual. And yet you collapse from exhaustion. That salary brings no joy, no real happiness, only a dull reassurance. Perhaps I'll survive another month. I'll be able to buy a loaf of bread and some milk. But is that truly living? Can such an existence even be called life? There is nothing more precious in this world than a person's time, than their life itself. And no amount of money can measure that. And again, I'll say it. There are people with shelves full of money. But they still die of strokes, of heart attacks, Their lives end all the same. Sometimes tragically, they are killed. We all know such cases. They are countless. Why does a person need all this? What is it for? It all comes down to the level of consciousness. Money has earned a bad reputation because people kill for it, because it kills. Because the energy that is taken in the form of money is misused, because, as it is often said, it's dirty. All these social aspects of money. A person who understands the nature of how things are arranged can redirect this energy towards the right purpose. Thus, what was once dirty money can become clean and beneficial. And I don't mean dirty paper, but the potential money carries. Although yes, there's a great deal of physical dirt on it, as well as it passes through so many hands. Imagine, it's a carrier of information, of energy. Sometimes after handling money, you truly feel the need to wash your hands, to wash off the energy it may have carried. Water can remove that energetic residue, so we really should carry it in bags. I'm joking, of course. But if we truly see that money is energy, and we direct that energy toward growth, then we've done something meaningful in this life. There is a practice of expressing gratitude to the universe by giving a 10th part of what we earn back to the world as a gift. For instance, if a person earns 100,000, a tenth of that is not really theirs. That tenth should be used consciously. This helps restore the balance. When someone has a lot of money, it may be their earned merit from the past. The universe trusts them with this energy and watches. What will you do with it now? Your wealth may be the result of good karma. But how you use it now, that is your new karma. And this is happening all the time. And when the universe sees that this money is hoarded, that this energy is being withheld and used only for oneself, then eventually something intervenes. Banks collapse, inflation strikes, something else happens, health fails. We've seen many such cases. So yes, it's absolutely fine to have money. It's fine to buy yourself beautiful clothes. In nature, in life, beauty has its rightful place. If someone has a genuine desire to purchase a car, they are fully entitled to do so. No one has the right to reproach them for that. The problem lies in becoming attached to things, whether it's a car, clothing, or any other possession. Attachments are to be avoided. True spirituality is the ability to own things, while remaining free from dependence on them. Osho, a well-known figure, owned 99 Rolls-Royces, all of the same make and color. You see? Why 99? Because he simply wished it. How did he live? In complete detachment. He had everything, yet remained unbound by it, demonstrating his detachment through life. He was a powerful being. Many masters live in the same way. They partake of the world's comforts, but do so without clinging to them. Detachment is essential. To live for money alone is not truly living. But when one lives for higher ideals, and through sincere spiritual practice discovers certain opportunities, including financial ones, these are natural side effects of yoga, just like improved health. That is how one ought to live.